My name's Paul Bestall, and you're listening to Mysteries and Monsters. The world is a possibility, if you'll only try. Right, joining me today, I'm very privileged to have Brennan Storr and Ian Gibbs from one of my very favourite podcasts, the Ghost Story Guys, talking to me today all the way from Canada. So, welcome. Thank you for joining me, gents.
Thanks for having us, man. Although I got to say, I'm a little sad we're not your most favorite podcast. I mean, sure, Jim Harold's great, but I bet I could beat him in arm wrestling.
Oh, no, you're all right. You're just below Shannon. So you're all right.
I couldn't beat her in arm wrestling.
No. Well, I don't think any of us could. And it's not a challenge I plan to do, and I know she's usually fully loaded as well. So no.
No, she's great. Don't. Can I swear? Can I swear?
Yes, of course you can.
Okay, good. I realized I swore within like 8 seconds.
That's all right. I wouldn't expect anything else. Okay.
I'm trying not to do that. Hang on. What the fuck does that mean? Fight me. Come here and fight me.
Oh, you set him off.
Nothing. It doesn't take much.
Darken the room with chamomile tea and just get him all calmed down.
Like one of those condors, you got to put the hood over my head.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Tranquility now.
Well, yeah. Next time I'll bring a leather glove and we'll get Brennan perched on my arm and we'll see how we go.
Yes, but we are the Ghost Story Guys.
Indeed.
And remembering why it is we're here.
Oh, yeah.
And thank you for having us, man. This is very cool. I'm excited to be on your show. I've been looking forward to this.
No, very much so, because it's one of those strange things about podcasts, because I was just double-checking when I was obviously doing my notes. Obviously, the first time I sort of heard you, Brennan, was when you were on Into the Fray, strangely enough, mentioning it. I've just been double-checking the episode over 2 years ago, obviously, just when the Ghost Story Guys launched.
Oh, yeah, and I mean, honestly, I think without that interview, without that Into the Fray interview, we wouldn't have launched when we did. And who knows if we would have launched.
Yeah, because, I was quite happy to take our time.
Yeah.
I was quite surprised when Brennan had he and I discussed the idea, and I thought, a month or two, we'll get it going. Within that week, he had the website, the email address,
the logo, the theme
logo,
song.
Everything was good to go, and I'm like, oh, crap, we're doing this now.
Yeah. And so we started getting everything organized, and then I got the email from Shannon, who I was sort of peripherally aware of her show because I'd done a bunch of press for my book, A Strange Little Place, available everywhere fine books are sold.
I was waiting for that.
Yeah. There'll be more
catchphrases.
But when she offered me a spot on her show, I thought, well, that's fantastic, and what a great opportunity to launch, to sort of promote the podcast. So we really kind of put the hammer down and got it out the door. And I like to tell Shannon, and I mean it, without her, I don't know that there would have been a Ghost Story Guys. So, Shannon, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Well, I think it's one of those things with the podcast, because for me it's kind of like a domino. And when I was talking to Lyle Blackburn the other week, I was kind of mentioning how it's kind of, because my brother got me into podcasts. So the first sort of paranormal one I got from North America was the Graylian Report with Micah Hanks.
Oh, yeah.
And he had Shannon on, and I think it was when she just left OK Talk and she was just about to launch into the fray. So obviously heard her on there, and I thought, hey, she sounds pretty cool. We'll give that a go. So from that's kind of spread out. So I've now, my weekly entertainment is mostly podcast based, and obviously, I've got you guys, Monsters Among Us, Into the Fray, Graylian, and so if there's anybody on there, I kind of tend to follow them. So obviously that kind of theme developed obviously when you appeared. And I thought, hey, this sounds good, because I think the good thing I love about your show is both the sense of humour, because it's warped like me. Mm-hmm. Well, certainly Brennan's sense of humour is, Ian. Yeah. Apologies. And then and I just think it's quite an interesting way that you look at different cases and you go after things, and I just really like the format that you do and the way it comes across. I personally love it. I think it's great. It makes me chuckle more than any other podcast I listen to.
Yeah, that is really good to hear.
Yeah, thanks, man. Yeah. I mean, it's funny enough, when we first started, I wasn't really sure what we should be, because Ian had this idea we would just tell ghost stories, and I thought, no, that's not enough. That's not big enough.
And laugh.
And laugh. I mean, the laugh. Yeah, I figured that worked, because we met in December of 2016. Yeah. We recorded our first podcast in
January,
a month later.
Yeah.
We just clicked. Yeah. And so the laughing part, that was great, but coming up with the format was harder, because one of my favorite paranormal shows, although I haven't listened to it in ages, is Mysterious Universe.
Yep.
And I just love what they do with it's such an information-rich show. And I really wanted to do something like that. But then we started doing the show, and I realized how much fucking work that is.
Yeah.
It's just to absorb a new topic every 10 days and write a 5,000 to 10,000 word essay on it, basically.
Yeah.
Was excruciating.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, this sucks.
But you do enjoy making things far more difficult than they have to be.
I'm Catholic.
One of your personality traits. So we really didn't have any options in terms of starting the show off that way until you figured it out yourself.
Well, yeah, that sort of once Luke came on board, our researcher Luke Greensmith, in January of last year, he started sort of firing us stories, and we just started turning to this sort of story-based format where we're telling true stories. We like to say we tell true stories of the paranormal with a skeptical eye.
Right.
Because I don't have any time for bullshit stories. I don't have any time for creepypasta. I mean, creepypasta are fun, but they got to be marketed that way.
Yeah.
You got to say, like, this is creepypasta. We're not too worried about, like, this is not real.
Yeah.
And I'm cool with that.
Yeah.
But it's when the lines start to blur, I get pissed off, because there's enough shit going on. We don't need to make stuff up, and it just blurs the lines, and it makes it harder to take it seriously.
Definitely.
And that's the thing that really burns my ass is, like we did an episode 30, I think it was, Thing in the Woods.
Yeah.
We had a lot of people ask about the staircases in natural places, and we did a deep dive into that, and it's just a creepypasta. It's a good one. It's a fantastic story.
Yeah.
But it's just creepypasta. And so we did an episode saying, you know what? Okay, this isn't real, but here's a bunch of weird shit that's happened in the woods.
Yeah. That is real.
Yeah. The woods are plenty scary. You don't need to make shit up.
No.
I mean, there was just a kid.
I've just been talking about Casey Hathaway.
Yeah.
He's just been found. Was it yesterday? I put it on our page today, because obviously the big thing about what he said is the fact that obviously he disappeared for 3 days, and he said that a bear looked after him.
That's crazy.
And that fits with, a lot of Pilates stuff.
Yeah.
Strangely enough, it's been one of those weeks, because, like, obviously we were talking on Facebook the other day about the Pilates documentary that's just been on, The Vanished, and he was obviously watched that on Tuesday, I think it was on over here, and then obviously this case has kicked off at the same time.
Right.
And I, obviously I've been a big fan of David Pilates' work, because I just find it terrifying, personally.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I actually sent a case into him once. And I was surprised when he responded, actually.
Yeah.
It was just a thank you, but he responded. I was in, where was I? I was in Northern California in 2008. I was driving down Highway 101 with a friend, and we pulled over at the Redwoods to take some pictures.
Yeah.
Because we'd never seen anything like that before. It was really early in the morning. Now, my friend had been in a really serious car accident about 6 weeks before that. So, and we're talking like in the hospital for a month or close to a month. So he couldn't do anything strenuous. But as we're walking up and down the road taking pictures of the Redwoods, we split up a bit, and then I couldn't find him. And the forest floor was about 10, 15 feet down from the road on a slope.
Yeah.
And of course, it's impenetrable past a certain point. And I couldn't find this guy. And I was calling out his name, and I said, where the fuck is he gone?
Yeah. And
finally, I hear him call from the trees. And he said, I'm down here. I said, what the hell are you doing down there, you ass? Get back up on the... So he comes back up on the road. I said, are you crazy? I said, you're not supposed to be doing any kind of like climbing, anything strenuous. And he said, well, I heard you calling me from down there. And he said, so I down there. And now at the time I had been calling his name. So we figured it's just like the echo of the trees and shit. But then I started reading, a couple years ago, I started reading the Missing 411 books. And I thought, shit, it occurred to me. He went missing before I started calling for him.
And trees don't echo.
No.
I guess, yeah.
Trees don't echo.
Well, if anything, it usually muffles the sound because of the shape and the design of them, and depending on what time of year you're there, is it leaf cover on the ground or are they in bloom? The sound doesn't work like that in a wood.
Yeah. So 10 years later, I realized, holy shit, I wasn't the one calling him from the trees.
I wonder if it's because maybe he was close to death at some point that makes him more vulnerable to that kind of thing. I keep hearing more and more of that lately, where people have had these sort of near-death experiences,
right?
And then they're closer to something. They're closer to that sort of energy that makes them more like of a lightning rod, or
right.
I don't know.
Maybe. I mean, I don't know that he ever had any other experiences like that.
Right.
I don't think he did.
Well, it could have been just because of that.
Yeah, I mean, because it was so fresh.
Yeah.
And I know 2 people did die in that accident.
There you go.
There was 2 cars collided head on a mountain road at night.
Jesus.
Yeah, it was sad. They say the folks in the oncoming car were killed. So that could be. I'd never thought about that.
Yeah.
I mean, the night before we'd stayed in, I think, Crescent City, California, and I think we skirted death then too, because we pulled up to this motel called the El Patio.
Selling me already this.
And we needed, of course, we were looking for a place to stay, and the idea was generally, when I'm on a road trip, you drive until you're tired and you find a motel. So we did that. We pulled up to the El Patio, and there appeared to be a biker party happening in 2 of the rooms.
Perfect.
Well, we're here, so go to the office. The office was closed, but there was a sign on the door saying, call this number. But when we called the number, the name on the voicemail was different than the name on the door.
Uh-oh.
Combined with biker party, we thought maybe we'll just move on.
Yeah, maybe this person's already dead.
Wearing his skin.
Pretty much. Hello. Look, I'm a hotel manager.
It's the Ed Gain Appreciation Society annual meeting.
Yeah, exactly.
So we ended up at I think it was the Penny Saver Motel in the same town.
Even better.
And we mentioned to the gal behind the counter, we said, hey, we tried the El Patio before. And you saw her eyebrows just go up. Oh, yeah? How was that? It's kind of scary. Yeah. That was it.
Say.
Check this in.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow. Yeah,
I
Google
think...
reviews are there for a reason.
Oh, this was...
I know, this is 10
years ago, 11 years ago.
Yeah.
But I mean, that reminds me of another time, and I swear I'll stop telling these stupid-ass stories in a sec. But this is probably 16 years ago. I was driving through this little town called Hope, BC, which is the antithesis of that.
Yes, it should be hopeless. Yeah.
If you're a Rambo fan, they filmed First Blood there.
Nice. Right. Well, obviously I've seen that film far too many times than I should have. So yeah.
So that's what. And funny enough, they still have a wooden cutout of Rambo downtown where you can stick your head through.
Oh, come on!
I got to get a picture. I still haven't done it, but I got to get that picture.
How many years ago was that?
Rambo was First Blood was
81, 82?
It was 82, so it's 37 years ago.
And they're still trying to cash that check?
Hey, man, if you lived in Hope, you would too.
Well, true. Not much else going on. Anyway, sorry.
But no, so we pulled up in Hope, and we ended up staying in, what was it called? The Maple Leaf Motel, I think.
I love the names.
And there were There was mold in the fridge, cigarette ashes in the nightstand.
Perfect.
And I went for a walk down to the convenience store, and I got talking to this girl who worked there, and I said, "So what's there to do in Hope on, Wednesday night or Thursday night?" And
she's like, "You're doing it."
Yeah. I was hoping she'd say me, but hope sprung eternal in young Bren's breast. But no, she said, "Well, there's a big party in town." She said, "There's these twins who own a house. They have these huge parties, and so everyone's going to that." And I said, "Oh, what's the odds of two locals being welcome there? Or sorry, two out of towners being welcome there?" And she said, "Oh no, don't do that. They'll kick the shit out of you."
Okay.
All right then.
This is why Hope is a bustling, growing metropolis.
Hope. I mean, on the paranormal end of things, Hope is fascinating because it really changes after 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
Before 5, it's just kind of slightly unsettling little mountain town. After 5, a friend of mine told me about this, and I've been there. I've passed through in the evening. It changes. It becomes a lot more sinister. I know my old man, my dad. He's got problems with drugs, and years ago he disappeared for 6 months. And when they finally found him, guess where he was?
No,
he was in Hope.
You think people like that would go to Chilliwack?
Well, too far away.
Oh, gotcha.
That's yuppie.
That's the ones with money.
Working class.
It's more the Greyhound bus kind of.
Blue collar strong.
Yeah, blue collar. Pass me the pipe. Yeah.
That's right. But no, going back to Paulides, I'm fascinated by the stuff he does. The missing 411 stuff just cuts me to the core. Like I'm really interested in that. And have you read all of the books now? The Paulides books?
No, not yet. I mean, I've managed to. A friend of mine's got a couple, so I've read those.
Oh, okay.
I don't physically own because they are so expensive to get over here.
Even
if you get them from his site, because I think you have to buy a minimum of 2 books if you live outside of North America.
Yeah, and shipping is like $40 US.
Yeah, so it's $90 minimum order.
Oh, yeah.
And he's one of those things that it's on my on my paranormal wish list is to get all, because there's 7 now, I think, isn't there?
Yeah, I've got 1 to 5. I ordered those back when I was making baller dollars at the dispensary. But, yeah, I've got. I know I want to pick up the last 2, but as you say, it's now I'm poor, so I'm not.
Is he self-published? Is that why they're so expensive?
He's self-published, and they're only available via his website.
Okay,
Yeah.
Makes sense. It's got to charge a lot to make it viable.
Exactly, and they're really nice. Or the ones I've got, at least, are really nice hardback.
Yeah, I noticed that.
So
yeah.
they're not cheap
your
to make.
usual self-published stuff.
No. That said, when I first started writing A Strange Little Place, available everywhere, fine books are sold. I really had this idea in my head because I started back in 2012, and I really had this idea because I knew fuck all about shipping or publishing. That self-publishing was kind of like a black mark.
Yeah.
It was like something that you only did if you were really desperate. But the more I learned as I went through the process, it's so common now. It's because getting a book published is hard.
Yeah.
You know why? Because what I've noticed now is if you have any kind of social media presence or following, you're much more likely to get published.
Right.
Because the hardest part of book publishing, it's not the getting the book published, it's the distribution.
Right.
And so being self-published is no bad thing in terms of class or
No,
whatever.
no.
It's the distribution. No one will ever see your book.
Yeah, you really have to promote it.
But how can you? How can you promote it enough? How can you make enough noise in the great big world to get it out there? I mean, even David Paulides, we're talking about him. He's well known in his field, but he has to charge so much for his books because he has no support system behind him.
Yeah, no, you really have to be a tireless promoter, and I think you run the danger of being one of those guys on Twitter who's got 60. You follow 65,000 people, and they consequently you have 45,000 followers.
Yeah, or they mention their book relentlessly.
Oh God, those guys are so gross. They're handsome though, and virile.
Yeah, you see it a lot, especially on Facebook. I'm trying to think which one of our mutual friends it was last year, but whenever they posted anything on their page, they had one of these authors that every single response to anything that anybody said about anything was, "Oh yeah, well I think that. By the way, have you bought my book? Here it is." And then there's a massive Amazon blurb, and you're just like, just talk to people.
I think I remember that one.
Yeah.
I can't think what it was. It didn't look a very interesting book anyway, so it was kind of having the opposite effect.
Anyway.
Yeah.
We don't want to give it any more press.
No.
Unlike my book, Victoria's Most Haunted.
Yes.
You're breaking up. You're breaking up.
Available far more places than Brennan's, I might add.
Well, you're both available in the UK, so...
Excellent. Good to hear.
Mine's in some libraries in the UK.
It is indeed.
Great.
So suck it, Gibbs.
Poor people can read your book. How lovely.
You are poor people.
I know. I love the library, I'm not going to lie.
No. I sometimes go to the library just to see if someone's got my books checked out. Oh,
you can do that from home.
Yeah, but the library's down the street, and I always buy coffee across, like right next door.
Oh, I don't have time for that kind of thing.
Oh, I know you.
I have my
social life.
I pre-order my books, and then they send me an email and say your books are here. Come get them. That's what
I can't afford to buy copies of my fucking books. So there we are.
No. I mean at the library.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, you
can
like go online and go, yeah, I want this one, and then they're like,
you
hey,
place a hold.
That's it.
Just
Pre-order.
This brand new pre-order. Yep.
Pre-order.
Okay.
That's what I call it.
Okay, Granddad.
If I could get them like actually delivered to my house, I'd use the library way more. Of course, it would. Special pouches brought to me by birds.
Oh, Jesus.
Like yes.
You're using the fucking library at
Oh
Hogwarts.
my God, you're right. I want Hogwarts. That's what I want. That's my goal.
This is what I deal with, Paul.
I
don't show the ghost story guys everywhere podcasts live.
I need Brennan to just promote me. I think that would be. I'd do far better.
Well, yeah. Certainly, I'm sure you'd end up in some interesting situations.
Yeah, that's already happened, believe me.
Or opportunities. It depends how you want to view them.
Yeah,
that's it. Yeah. Where do you want to end up? How safe do we want to be?
How do you feel about physical violence?
I like the fun kind. The kinky kind.
Yeah. Just how flexible are you?
Yeah.
I never want to know how flexible Ian is. Never in a million years.
I think he's talking morally, not physically.
Yeah.
Same.
Thanks.
Same.
Oh, same.
Yep.
Same.
Nope.
Okay, gotcha.
Because the latter leads to mental images, and that's just...
Ew, gross.
So, going back to you guys kicking off with the podcast, and obviously the fact that you'd met fairly rapidly, and kind of gone, 2-3 months before you'd sort of first met to then being the
6
duo?
weeks.
Yeah, literally.
6 weeks.
Because I met you, like I said,
in December.
I want to say like December 6th or something.
Yeah.
We met up for coffee, and...
Spent 5 hours talking.
Yeah, pretty close. And then we released the first episode, I think, on January 30th, the following month.
Yeah.
So I would say 6 to 8 weeks.
Yeah.
So what was the key? Why did you want to do one?
I had met with a guy who is I used to do youth work, and this guy has basically started 4 different companies. He's just a complete whiz. And I met with him just as the book was going to be released that year, and he said, okay, so the book's done. And I said, yes. And he goes, so it's dead now. What are you going to do now? And I looked at him kind of startled, like, what? And he said, well, once it's done, once it's published, it's over. Like, that's it. So what are you going to do to be current? And I said, what would you do to be current? And he said, well, you could do a blog, but, no one reads those anymore. What you should do, he said, because you're good at talking, you should do a podcast. And I was like, I don't even listen to podcasts. I do not understand this magic. So when I met Brennan, because I got in touch with Brennan because a mutual friend had said, hey, I have a friend whose husband wrote a ghost book as well. You should talk to him. And I was like, oh, yeah. And I contacted him earlier, but we just never really got together. But then when my book was going to be published, I thought, I want to talk to him, learn some lessons sort of thing, what worked for him, what didn't. So when we got together, podcasting was not on my mind with anybody else. I was still sort of mulling over how to do it and what it would mean. Yeah. And the second time we hung out, I actually remember saying this to you because once I met Brennan, something was going around in my head, and I said, I think we're supposed to do something together, but I don't know what it is. And Brennan said, yeah, I get that. And then it was the third time we hung out, and I'm like, what do you think about a podcast? I already have a name, and that's pretty much where my contribution ended. But that was it. He took it and ran with it, and that's how it came to be. But it was really about, as authors, remaining current, remaining relevant, finding a way to speak directly to readers so that they can have a better understanding and access of who we are as well. And also, I guess as a vehicle of promotion, it's certainly part of it, but it's that's really diminished over the course of doing this. Now, in a lot of ways, the podcast is far bigger than our books.
Oh yeah, I mean, my book came out almost 3 years ago now. Like
right.
I sort of, I'll do the wherever fine books are sold thing, but
Yeah.
it's in the past. I'm working on some new stuff, but not a paranormal necessarily book, but because it's I find the show way more engaging for me than the book was, because it took me 3 years to write the book, and part of that was just because I'd never written a book before, so I had no idea how that process worked.
It's very isolating.
It is, yeah.
It's incredibly alone.
And once you're done the press, I mean, I did a lot of shows. I did something like 21 or 22 shows.
But before that book came out.
Yeah, that's
what I learned from you, actually. That's a big piece.
Yeah.
Don't do the press before the book's available, because people can't buy it and they forget.
Well, what happened was I had two really great opportunities come up before the book was released, and they turned out to be two of my biggest ones.
Oh.
First was Midnight in the Desert.
Yeah.
With Heather, and Heather was so great. I did 4 hours of live radio with her back in, I want to say May. I think it was May of 2016. And she would, during the breaks, she would come back on and she would talk to me and say, okay, what do you want to do next? This is what we're going to do next.
She was great.
She was great.
Really liked her.
We took 2 hours of live calls, and then I managed to use that interview to I sent just a total pie in the sky Hail Mary email to Mysterious Universe, and got on there. And I tell you, man, I did a lot of shows. I talked to a lot of cool people, but being on MU was like literally it was like the first time I talked to Jim Harold. I was starstruck.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like, oh shit, this is real. Like, they're talking to me now. It was weird. And I know earlier I made a joke about arm wrestling Jim. I want to make it clear, I respect the shit out of Jim Harold. Jim's so good to me. He wrote the foreword for my book.
Yeah.
No, Jim is just a great fucking dude. It occurred to me that there are some people who think, he's disrespecting Jim. Never.
No.
Never in years. I respect the hell out of Jim and what he does. And he's a nice guy.
Yeah.
He's just a genuinely nice guy. And
he is. I've always liked the way he's one of those interviewers that you hear. We've got a guy over here who's quite similar called Howard Hughes, who presents a podcast called The Unexplained.
I was on there. Howard's a really cool guy. He was actually one of the best prepared interviewers I had.
Oh, well, he's a journalist and a newsreader. He's come out of standard broadcasting, so he's basically made a sort of seamless transition, because he was on the radio in the UK. He was the breaking news reporter in the 80s and 90s in London. So he worked with a guy he's still a well-known British celebrity called Chris Tarrant.
Oh yeah, that name.
Who did Kids Telly in the 70s, and he's kind of he presented Who Wants to Be a Millionaire over here. He was one of those guys in the 90s and noughties that kind of show he did. So he got the biggest drive-in show in London, and he worked with him. So Howard was always very very well prepared when he speaks to anybody, and he's very similar to Jim in the way that he's very relaxed when he has people on. But he's probably a little bit more combative than Jim, because Jim tends to let people come on and just talk to them and just basically, try and find out what makes them tick, whereas Howard kind of just will talk to someone until they make a ridiculous claim, and then he'll go, right, well, what do you mean by that?
Right.
The alien super soldier interview is a prime case. If you've never heard that interview with a guy called Captain Randy Kramer, which made me laugh straight away, because obviously Randy means a different thing in the UK.
Yes, it does.
And him going on about him fighting aliens on Mars for 20 years was just one of the most surreal interviews I've ever heard in my life.
Oh.
Yeah, honestly, I've drifted a bit from paranormal shows because of that, because there's a lot of
whack jobs. Oh, sorry.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of great people doing really great research. Like, I really like, we talked about David Pilates, David Weatherly, I think does stuff. I really like his books. There are more. I just, off the top of my head, I can't think.
Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons of, people like Lyle Blackburn.
Of course, yeah.
And the small town monsters guys, Seth Breedlove and those chaps. It's a bit more grounded, a bit more on the It can't, whilst they're dealing with fantastical subjects, I think that they are firmly on the ground in regards to what they're looking at and the way they kind of whether it's Lyle's books or when he's being interviewed or the films that they make as well.
Yeah, I think their new Kickstarter is going up pretty soon. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, I think 7th of February, I think it is.
Sweet. No, I can't wait. I'm pretty sure I've got, which one do I have? I've got at least one of them. Who's the Mothman one?
Yeah.
Yeah, I slept like 4 hours last night because we're doing a Ghost Story Guys recording after this. So I had to do a bunch of equipment testing with our guy in England. And
it did not go well.
Well, no, and I was trying to think of a way to solve this problem, and I thought of it at like 2 in the morning, or midnight, our time. And so I was waiting for him to wake up.
Oh, no.
So I could message him. And finally, at like 2 a.m., 3 a.m., I'm like, okay, fuck this, I'm going to bed.
You should have just messaged his girlfriend.
Yeah,
that would have gotten results.
Ultimately, she's the one who picked up the equipment we
there
needed.
You
so.
see what I'm saying?
Great.
There you go.
But anyways, yeah, no, those guys are great. And as I said, so I don't listen to as many shows as I did just because it's harder to kind of sift through some of the guys who are just saying crazy stuff. And I find too, with this, I don't know if I've ever admitted this on the show before, but
my eyes are full
of fear.
Calm down. What are you gonna say?
Yeah. The lawyer on speed dial. Carry on.
I wish I could tell that story.
No.
Fine. No, I don't like listening to paranormal shows now because I get anxious about it being better than our show. And I'm like, oh shit, I got to make our show better, and then I just spin out and I can't appreciate it.
The thing with our show is it is so organic. Like, we would be doing this whether or not we were recording it. That's what makes it work. Is that Brennan puts a ton of work into smoothing out the stories and just in terms of making them easier for us to tell. And he has a lot of thought in the production and the production values and also how we're going to get everything to connect when we do it. Our first podcast, Jesus, that thing took like 8 hours to record. It was so painful.
God, we're sitting around the conference table in my old office.
And we're like, what do we do? I don't know. What do you want to do? I don't know. And then when we were done, Brendan, I remember the first thing you said after we finished recording was, well, that was kind of funny. And I'm like, oh, was it? No? Is that a bad thing? So it's sort of organically become what it is, but I think it has done that because it is authentically who we are.
Yeah, but I still listen to shows like Ryan from what's the show called? Ryan Sprague.
Somewhere in the Skies.
Yes, when he does these little audio documentaries. We're patrons of his show, and I will soon be patrons of your show.
Yeah, and likewise as well, gentlemen.
Yes,
thank you for the sticker.
Oh yeah, but I mean, he does these audio documentaries. He's done a few of them now, and I sent him a message once. I said, dude, the amount of work that must go into this is really incredible. Like, if you're not listening to his show, I know you are, but if you're listening or not listening to Ryan's show, you got to listen, because even if you're not totally into the UFO thing, just the amount of production this is a one-man show puts into that goddamn thing. And so I hear that and I think, okay, fuck, I got to step up my game.
Yeah,
I've got to be better at this.
Brennan.
I mean, that's the thing though with
you.
Yeah, Ryan's show has probably reignited my enthusiasm for the UFO field.
Oh, okay, that's cool.
If you know what I mean, because I'd kind of, I'm like what you've just been saying about the certain paranormal shows, and there are certain fringe subjects that we all are aware of that I just think are just too far past the pale. But I think Ryan's and ufology for me kind of went, Roswell and Rendlesham, and I just had enough of the same cases over and over and over again, and it's kind of like you just basically think, can we talk about something else? And Ryan's strength is he clearly loves the subject matter,
right? Yeah.
And I just find that really enjoyable, and through his enthusiasm and his clear enjoyment of the subject, and as you say, Brian, his work ethic and the research he does, it's hard not to be dragged along with him with his enthusiasm. It's kind of rekindled my interest in that subject.
And anytime someone's passionate about something, I mean, that's going to make you be, more interested or have a higher buy-in on it because they're just so passionate about it.
Yeah. And I think to me, the greatest compliment you can pay someone doing this, because obviously as podcasters, we're not making a lot of fucking money.
Yeah.
No.
I mean, we've been very lucky. We opened our Patreon in August, and I was shocked that anyone wanted to give us money at all.
Yeah.
I know. I was
one of Ian's great ideas.
Yeah, exactly.
Push.
Shut up, Paul. Shut up.
Thanks, Paul.
Now you're welcome.
Pays the rent on the mountain cabin.
Well, we're never doing this show again.
Yeah.
Exactly. But anyways, no. Yeah, no. Like, we're not all making a ton of money. But when you find out that the work you've done inspires someone, like you said, like with Ryan's show, it's inspired you to, it's reignited your interest in UFOs. That's huge. Like finding that out. I mean, I assume that's got to be a huge thing. Like I know our thing is we seem to have people get a hold of us and say, I was a really hardcore skeptic until I listened to your show, and I'm still skeptical, but I'm more open.
And that's cool. That's exactly it. That's how I am. And it's funny because it's the passion thing. Going back to that, I realized that's what actually got me my first book was because the publisher went on my ghost tour. And she asked me a bunch of questions afterwards, and she said, you tell this with such enthusiasm. You obviously love the history, you love the ghost stories. And I'm like, well, yeah, I do. I'm not going to apologize for that. And that's when she's like, can you write the way you talk? And I was like, yes. And it just went from there. So it does make a difference if you're passionate about what you're talking about, and you're not afraid to be passionate about it. I think a lot of times people are, because if the subject is subjective, they don't want to be judged by it.
Well, I think we live too in such an ironic age where it's sort of frowned upon to care about stuff.
Yes.
It's not cool.
Yeah.
And I mean, thankfully, neither of us have ever really given a flying fuck about being cool.
Too old for that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you are pretty old.
I know.
Yeah.
Well, you're in good company. Carry on.
72.
That's right.
I mean the year I was born, not my age.
Yeah. Me and you both, Ian. Me and you both.
There you go.
Like a fine wine.
Exactly.
Oh man, I was at a concert here. Do you guys know who the artist Bruce Coburn is? I know you know who he is. Yeah.
You know? Hey, I know more about Canadian music due to my strange love affair with Rush.
Oh,
okay.
Rush, yes.
Well, Paul's sort of an elder statesman of Canadian rock and roll.
Yeah,
so
right. Yeah.
And Bruce Coburn. And I saw him at a show here a few years ago. And someone, because he's in his 60s now, and someone shouted out, he like, you're aging like a fine wine, Bruce. And one, that's a weird thing to shout at a concert.
Yeah, that is weird.
But he immediately just looked back at the guy and said, consumed all too quickly and turned to urine. Boom! Suck it, you ass.
Marvelous.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's one of those things, though. It's like that. Like you were saying about, you're comparing yourselves to, Brennan certainly is to other shows. I think the one thing that you have that elevates it to a different level for me as a listener, anyway, is the rapport and the way you two work together and what you talk about. That, with the humour, I think is what for me makes your show so enjoyable, because like I said to you earlier, it is the one podcast, especially when you're talking about these kind of subject matters, be it cryptids or ghosts or UFOs, that you're not so po-faced that you can't laugh at yourself or rightly call things out like, oh look, somebody's taking a picture of some orbs in a very dusty building. I wonder what it could be.
God.
Oh, it's summer in a swamp and there's orbs. Yeah, what could that be? Yeah.
I want a license to karate chop the throat of anyone who pulls that shit.
Or pictures bother me.
Yeah.
I've seen a couple of clips where something is intelligently moving around.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's an orb. That I get. But those pictures of like, oh, look, orbs. No, you have a phone camera with a flash. That's what that is.
Yeah.
And you know what? Again, people are going to believe what they believe. It's the same as being alone in a strange house, hearing the ice maker in the fridge and believing there's demons in the kitchen. Your mind is going to...
No one knows how ice makers work.
Yeah.
No one knows.
It's witchcraft. But, it's going to be what's going on for you in that situation at that time. And I think the biggest thing we can do is be willing to share, quote unquote, the evidence, and then letting other people weigh in on it and not taking offense to it. And Brennan and I are never going to take offense to someone saying, that's not my thing. Okay, cool.
No,
neither of us have anything to prove.
No, and I don't give a rat's ass whether someone else believes in it.
No, me neither.
Like I say in the intro to my book, Strange Little Place where fine books are sold.
God.
3 times I'll stop now.
Okay.
Rule of 3. I'm a comic genius.
Like Candyman. Anyway, carry on.
That's right. Oh God, I don't need Tony Todd showing it. Speaking of which, Scream Factory's just released that on Blu-ray. I cannot fucking wait.
Oh,
God, I love Candyman. Anyways, moving on. But no, in the intro to my book, I said, look, man, before I had the experiences that I had as I started writing the book, which was really my first adult paranormal experiences, I would not have
Adult or adult?
Not the fun kind. Not the fun kind.
no succubuses here.
Still waiting for that Ghostbusters moment. But,
Yeah, very much so. Yeah.
Or MacGruber. I don't know if anyone's seen MacGruber. There's a scene where he, anyways.
Anyway.
But no, the point is, before I had those experiences, you couldn't have convinced me. You couldn't have talked me into believing in shit. And so in the book, I say that. I say, I'm not trying to convince you. Truly, I don't care what you want to do. That's 100% on you, what you want to believe. Because, again, you couldn't have convinced me without my own experiences. And it just doesn't affect me whether or not someone believes. Yeah. So, you know, we had a fellow who was really skeptical contact us a little while ago. And I think he's drifted a little bit from sort of his acceptance of the subject. And that's fine. Totally fine. You got to do what works for you. And, yeah, we'll never try and convince you otherwise. Because I've had people say that they're not, that the subject bothers them. Like, I know someone who has shadow people, kind of sleep paralysis / shadow people attacks. Yeah. They run the family. And whenever the subject starts coming up too much, they have them.
Right.
And so I'll tell them, just leave it.
Triggers them, yeah.
Just move on with your life.
Yeah. For me, it was kind of the same thing. And writing the dedication for my book, Victoria's Haunted, I wrote something very similar to what Brennan had. I said, for those who believe but fear, for those who don't believe but want to, for those who aren't sure but love stories, this book is for you.
What was the original dedication, Ian?
I don't remember. And I just thought it kind of covered everybody. Yeah. So because that's who you run into. And I've done a couple of radio shows, you know, those call-in shows where crazy people listen to them.
Yeah.
Here in Victoria. And you know what's so funny is people will phone in and they want to share their ghost stories, but what they say is, I don't believe in ghosts, but.
Yeah.
And then they share their experiences. And it's just so funny because whether people know it or not, they're believing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they don't feel comfortable confessing it.
Yeah.
And that's too bad. I mean, what's the big deal? Who cares? Yeah. What do you have in your political career? Like, no one cares. Jim, who works at the Jiffy Lube, no one cares.
That's right.
Yeah.
We're watching right now, Jim.
Well, we had a very similar story in my family in regards to my stepdad was a scientist, doctor of chemistry. So everything was explainable.
Of course, yeah.
And then my aunt died 30 years ago. I was pretty young.
Right.
And I was still a teenager. And he was absolutely, skeptical.
Yeah.
And we had a couple of instances with other family members. Like, she appeared to my uncle when he was at home. My uncle, complete skeptic, Royal Navy, been all around the world. You know, as grounded a man as you could ever wish to meet. She turned up and basically screamed at him, terrified him. Absolutely terrified him. And he wasn't, he wasn't one of those people that wanted his belief changing, and he wasn't asking for what happened. It just happened, and he's never had anything, as far as I'm aware. He's never had another incident since.
Right.
But about 3 months later, parents were asleep in bed, and at 4 a.m, the whole room just filled up with an aroma of albus oil.
Okay.
Now, my aunt, when she died, she had severe brain cancer. She was essentially just riddled. It was horrific. Oh. And obviously they used the albus oil as a soother.
Right.
We didn't live anywhere.
Would have been connected with her.
Precisely. So they got up the next day, and my stepfather said to my mum, "I think we had a visitor last night," and that's all he ever said about it.
Yeah, that's the funny thing is people will do that. And I know families who all experience something completely paranormal in the house they're living and never talk about it. Yeah. And they acknowledge it very simply, like what happened with your parents. It's fascinating to me. And it's not until everyone's adults that they're like, oh, do you remember that house on, Smith Street and blah, blah, blah. Oh, yeah, I had that happen too. That everyone goes, oh, my God. I wasn't alone. This was a real thing. So, yeah, it's pretty wild.
I think one of our listeners had that happen. A a little while ago. I think the story we covered late last year. He was talking about how him and his brother compared notes when they were older, and they both had,
Yeah. I just finished talking with someone yesterday, actually, one of our listeners, who was saying how he was sick at home one day and his parents owned a shop underneath their apartment. And as he was sitting there watching TV, they'd just moved into this place, a little old lady walked in and seemed to be interested in something in the cupboard, and he looked at her. He knew she wasn't real, but he wasn't scared. She sort of acknowledged him, did her thing, and left. And then when his mom came upstairs to check on him, he said, I think I saw a ghost. And God bless his mother for being one of the very first parents I've ever heard of who didn't say, no, you didn't, it's your imagination. She said, oh, what did she look like? Or what did the ghost look like?
Oh, wow.
And he told her, and she said, yes, I've seen her too.
Oh, no.
I didn't want to tell you because I didn't want to upset you. How did you feel? And he said, I felt okay. And she's like, yeah, I don't think she's here to hurt us. I think she just used to live here a long time ago. And that was it. She normalized it. She didn't freak him out. And he went on to have quite a few more experiences in other homes they lived in. And his mother was there to say, yeah, I agree. In fact, one of them was extra special for him because his dad, who didn't believe in anything, said, yeah, I saw it too.
Wow.
Yeah. Pretty cool.
Now, contrast that with the story, it's not apocryphal, we found it online, but it's from here in Victoria. This kid was, he was at home, and he heard his dad calling him from the basement.
Right.
And so down, and his dad's like, hey man, can you give me a hand with this thing? So he started going down the stairs, and he saw his dad was like way at the far end of the basement, kind of in the shadows. And he thought, well, that's weird. He's like, oh yeah, no, Dad, come on here for a second. He's like, no, just come here. And he ran back upstairs, couldn't figure out why. Excuse me. And then he said to his mother, he said, hey, Dad's being weird. And she said, well, what do you mean? He said, well, he was calling me down to the basement, but he wouldn't come up. He was just being weird about it. He said, your dad's golfing.
Oh, wow.
And after that, he heard his parents talking. And they moved not long after because he found out way, way later, they had been experiencing things too, but they just never.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things. I grew up in a pretty spooky house. Ironically, it was a converted vicarage.
Oh, yes, yeah.
And it had been split into three sort of terraced houses. So there were three houses sort of all interconnected. And we had so many weird things.
Oh, I'm not surprised by that at all.
We even found a grave in the front garden.
Oh, perfect.
Nice.
One of the vicar's love children. No, I'm just kidding.
No, the gravestone. It was still engraved and everything. It was a 4-year-old girl.
Wow. That's the thing with England. It's history upon history upon history, isn't it?
Oh, it's because our house essentially was across the road from the old vicarage. So I lived at the back, so I couldn't see the front. But you were 20 yards away from the front door to the graveyard.
Yeah. Wow. That's crazy.
Yeah, and it was just one of those things, and from that point, we only stayed there 3 years in the end, but there was all kinds of stuff that happened. I got pushed, smashed my cheekbone.
Jesus.
The bath used to fill up overnight.
Oh, that's weird.
We had a toilet as well, and these days, you say to people these days, well, the toilet used to flush all the time. They go, oh, well, self-flushing toilets. Like, no, this was a chain toilet. This was a chain toilet.
Yeah.
We found a hidden room. That had been sealed off, and we went in. There was a candlestick and a bed. Nobody had been in there for 100 years. It was just crazy, and it wasn't a big house.
No,
it was just secret rooms and creepy
stuff. Did you guys start using that room, or
you what? Sorry.
Did you start using that room afterwards? Like, look, an extra bedroom.
There was about 10 of us that went up. There was like me, my stepdad, my mum, my granddad, and uncle. It was like, how many people can you fit in a small room? I think that's what they were trying to do. But it was like a little staircase. And it was just and when they'd been up, they basically just sealed it up and left it.
That is so weird.
Or it's like the Amityville Horror.
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, Canada, we've only been around for like less than 200 years, so we haven't really had time to come up with all this crazy history.
Oh, that's true.
Here, it's like, oh, your house is built in 1910. Oh, it's so old.
That's the in Beacon Hill Park that's like 100 years old.
And they were freaks out.
Very impressed.
Oh, it's ancient.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that vicarage was built 1764.
There you go. See, that's illustrated my point. Yeah.
Pre-American War of Independence.
Yeah.
Which,
everything. Yeah.
And that's just and it was a tiny little village in Yorkshire.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it wasn't like it was some notable thing, right? It was just a sort of random thing.
I really would love to get back there because I haven't been to England since 2011. because my wife's from, I think I mentioned, I don't know if it was on the actual recorded part of the call or not, but my wife is from just south of Bristol.
Yeah.
And I would love to try and go back there with my awareness now, because I
Right.
didn't really have an awareness of this kind of stuff back then.
It's not easy.
No, I bet. The only thing that ever happened to me over there was when we were in her hometown, which is Clevedon. And I woke up in the night because I heard a woman outside our bedroom, like in the hallway, saying,
Brennan, you're so handsome.
no, not even in my dreams. Even my fantasies, and they're like, okay, it's over quickly.
Put my nightshirt down when you're done.
Don't look in my eyes.
Don't kiss my mouth.
That's right. Okay. No time. No time.
That's extra.
Exactly, yeah. But no, so I heard like an old woman's voice out in the hallway saying, Peter, are you in there, Peter? And I was froze. I thought a crazy lady had wandered into the house.
Yeah, because it was so quick.
It was so clear. And then Nikki got up and walked to the door, and I said, what the hell are you doing? And she said, I'm going to the bathroom. But it was right.
The voice must have woken her up.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. And she just had no idea. And of course, there was no one there.
Yeah. Wow.
But I'm really curious because, I mean, when I was there, in years past, I've been to what's called the old trip to Jerusalem.
Yeah.
In Nottingham. Yeah. And that's something like 1,000 years old, or
The pub in Hertfordshire, in Hartford, is, I think, or St. Albans is supposed to be the oldest pub in England, continuous pub.
right.
Right by the cathedral. And I've been in there, and it's like,
Yeah.
it's heavy.
Yeah. There's so much stone too.
Yeah.
I just can't imagine.
Yeah.
So I'd love to get back there. I'd love to go back to Ireland too. But
You got a shield big time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, strangely enough, my work pub, because we have work pubs in England, because that's what Fridays are for.
Right.
Is the oldest pub in Sheffield, and that dates back to the 14th century. And it's 20 minutes walks, all Tudor outside and everything. The building's all leaning kind of weirdly.
Yeah.
And that's just a wonderfully old building, fabulous.
So in your day-to-day life, Paul, do you find yourself being sensitive to these things?
Sometimes, yeah. I mean, I've had a couple of, not for a while, but I had a very, very ropey experience when I was about 19, which changed my life entirely. We were at a friend's house, and they'd gone. Basically, we were all young teenagers, so parents away, everybody basically had a free holiday because everybody used to crash at friends' houses while the parents were away. And three of them had gone out around town, and I didn't want to go out because it was during the '92 Olympics, so I was just watching because I love my Olympics. So I said, right, I'll stay here with the young'uns, because there was like a couple of 15-year-olds there. I said, right, I'll stay here, leave me in charge, because I was the eldest at 19. You guys, if you want to go out for a few drinks, you do that, come back. But they'd gone out, and they came back, and something had happened in town. There'd been a bit of an altercation. They came back, they weren't drunk. I think they'd only had 2 or 3 drinks. One of them just said, right, well, I'm going to go up to this kid's house that they'd seen in town, and I'm going to sort this out. And as clear as day, I heard a voice next to my ear say, if he goes, he dies.
Oh, wow.
And I just went, oof, just froze instantly. Hair stood up on the back of my neck. Nobody else heard it.
No.
And so a couple of other guys are saying, well, we'll come with you. And then the voice said, if they go, they'll die. So I just said, I mean, this is like midnight, and I just said, if you leave now, you're not coming back. So, oh, how can you say something like that? Why are you being like this?
Yeah.
So everybody was then being really aggressive. But in the end, I ended up convincing everybody, apart from my best friend, not to get in this car.
Right.
So they went, and as they were going, I said, and it happened again. And I just said, if you leave again, you'll never step foot over the threshold. And that were it then. Everybody's like, how can you be like this?
Yeah.
What are you doing? How things are going? And they went. 10 minutes later, the phone rang, and somebody had been found in the street that had a car crash.
Oh, Jesus.
And it was it wasn't just a car crash. They'd ended up 12 foot up a tree.
Holy shit.
They'd had a blowout at 80 miles an hour. What had happened was the car was what we call a cut and shunt. It had been involved in a write-off.
Yeah.
And essentially 2 different cars had been welded together.
Yeah, and it went.
So, and there was a screw in the back tyre, and they came round the corner at such an angle at the right speed, a perfect storm of events, that the tyre nail had hit the floor, blown it, poof, and just sent them flying through the air. My best friend survived. The driver was killed near enough instantly. But my best friend had broke both his legs, his arm, 7 ribs, ruptured his spleen, concussion. But they were stuck up a tree. He kicked his way out the car, fell 12 foot, crawled up a banking, walked into the road, tried to flag a car down. The first car that went past nearly ran him over, nearly killed him.
Yeah.
And it was the car behind that had seen him fall over that stopped and rescued him.
And did you and he ever talk about what you'd said before they
Yeah.
And what did he say to that?
He said, why did you say it? And I just said I couldn't not say it.
Yeah.
And everybody that was there must have been a dozen people were there.
All heard you say it.
Yeah.
And then, like,
when that phone rang, everybody just froze and stared at me. And when they started telling them what had happened, it was as if it was my fault.
Yes,
of course. Yeah.
And that happens. And that absolutely happens. Yeah.
So from that point, I've until sort of the last year or so, I've basically not tried to encourage it at all.
Yep. I get that.
But I've just thought, well, what's the worst that could happen?
You know what? That's the same thing with me writing this book, because there were a few people who knew about my sensitivities, that I could do things. Only because, kind of near the end of an evening's dinner party when everyone's had too much wine. Yes. And I would talk about it. But I've helped a few people out in terms of, looking at houses they're thinking of buying and that sort of, never anything major, certainly nothing with life-changing consequences like yours. Yeah. So when I was looking at writing the book, I thought, well, this is it. This is going to be me sort of coming out as a ghost guy, and I'm ready for that. And then I realized, what am I protecting? Like, who cares? And that was it. There's no looking back.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it is one of those things. I'm trying to do it, but like you say, it's like I am a paranormal estate agent, because I've had it several times when people have bought houses or they're thinking of renting things.
Yeah, me too.
Do you want to come round, Paul? And
yeah. You check it out for the last walkthrough or whatever.
Yeah. How are you finding it?
Yeah.
How does it feel to you, Paul?
I've had it where people have bought the house already.
Are you asking me it's haunted? Yeah. No, you're fine.
I had it where people had actually already bought the house.
Oh.
And neither of them had any sensitivity. And so when I walked through the house with them, there was definitely something there, and it was upset. And so when they asked me, I'm like, you're fine. Because what am I going to do? Yeah. They'd already bought the house. I knew they wouldn't pick up on anything. Unfortunately, unpleasant things did occur to them, and they sold the house within a year. But it was nothing, as far as they were concerned, that was paranormal. It was all just bad luck.
Yep.
So I don't feel bad about that. They should have talked to me sooner. Or not asked me at all.
Yeah, and sometimes there's certain things you just can't tell people because they're not going to listen.
No.
They're not going to hear
you. No way.
Yeah.
No.
Absolutely.
Freak them out and upset them.
That's it. And maybe
For
even
no
lost the friendship, because I've had that happen.
Yeah.
I definitely have had some friendships kind of become distant since I sort of started talking about this stuff openly, and especially when it was just the book. I mean, now that the podcast is getting a little bit of traction, people are a little more accepting.
Yeah.
But it was just the book, or when I was writing the book.
Then you're a kook.
Yeah, exactly. I was a kook. And thankfully my employers at the time were cool about it.
Yeah.
But some of the people in my life were just kind of like, okay.
Yeah.
Sure,
buddy.
man.
Yeah. Take care.
And now I'm a titan of industry, and I will cry. Sorry, no.
No, that's not it.
No, I'm not even a titan.
Yeah,
Not even,
I'm just of the opinion I really don't care what anybody thinks.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's exactly what you got to be.
Yeah, find your truth, right?
Absolutely, and I think that's the best way for us to be. So listen, thank you so much for joining me. I know you've got a busy day ahead.
Thanks for having us, man. We got to do this again when we have a little more time.
Yeah. Absolutely, no, I've thoroughly enjoyed it. It's been an absolute pleasure. So listen, keep on doing the good work. So do you want to just give us a quick overview of which bad and good bookshops that you can get your products in, and where they can find the podcast, and how often you do it, and just tell people where they can find you.
All the Ghost Story Guys, we release every 2 weeks, generally. Sometimes we'll have a bonus episode, but you can find us at ghoststoryguys.com, everywhere fine podcasts live. We're on Instagram. I'm on Twitter at Largely the Truth. Ian is living in the 17th century.
Yeah, Facebook bound.
He's Facebook bound, but you can find both of us on Facebook, Ghost Story Guys, also on Facebook.
Yeah.
My book, A Strange Little Place, The Hauntings and Unexplained Events of One Small Town, is available on Amazon. And
Victoria's Most Haunted, it's available pretty much wherever. Amazon, of course. Next book coming out October 6th, 2020.
Woo!
Exciting.
Will be Vancouver's Most Haunted.
Fabulous.
I'm looking forward to it because it means it'll be done.
I love that. You just started it.
I know.
Oh, fuck, I can't wait for this thing to be done.
I know. Well, they already gave me the date.
Work is hard.
I was going to say that's planned in now.
Oh yeah, it's locked in. Signed the contract, all that stuff. So now I got to do it.
Yeah, it's only 21 months in. What's the
There you go. Well, actually, they want the first draft November 1st of this year. So
if you can't write a book before November 1st, I'm going to kick you in your penis.
Well, the other one took so long.
Yeah, well, that's motivation for you, Ian, if nothing else.
It is.
There
It
you
absolutely
go.
is.
Anyway, gentlemen, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much,
Thanks
Paul.
for having us, man.
Take care.
Catch you soon. Take care, guys.
You bet. Bye.